She looked at the little boy with tears in her eyes, never imagining he might be the son stolen from her years ago. Alex and Ava were a young couple, deeply in love and full of dreams. The moment they got married, they hoped to start a family right away. But life had other plans. For 4 long, painful years, they struggled with infertility. Each passing month brought disappointment. Each doctor's visit offered no real answers. Friends and strangers alike had endless theories. Some offered sympathy, others judgment. Ava endured whispers behind her back, cruel names, and the constant pressure of expectations she couldn't meet. Still, she and Alex clung to hope. Then, one day, their prayers were answered. A miracle happened. Their son, Robert, was born. From the moment he arrived, their lives changed completely. Laughter returned to their home. Joy returned to their hearts. One beautiful morning after breakfast, the little family sat together in the living room. Sunlight poured through the windows as Robert nestled between his parents. Alex sat gazing at his son, unable to stop smiling. Ava noticed. "Why are you smiling so much this morning?" she asked, a soft smile spreading across her own face. Alex turned to her, eyes warm. "Just thinking about how blessed we are to have Robert. Do you remember everything we went through?" "How could I forget?" Ava replied, her voice thick with emotion as tears welled up in her eyes. "For 4 years, we lived in heartbreak. The doctors couldn't explain why we couldn't conceive. And the world was not kind. People talked, judged, even told us to give up." Alex gently stroked Robert's hair, who was now playing with the toy in his lap. "And now look at him, our miracle baby," he said softly. "He'll be 5 next week," Ava added with a tender smile. "Can you believe it?" "Time flies," Alex murmured. "Our little boy is growing up." The next morning, the routine was familiar but still filled with love. Alex drove Robert to school. The little boy was full of energy, practically skipping out of the car to meet his friends. Alex watched him go with pride in his heart. Later that morning, he called Ava. "Hey, honey, I just dropped Robert off at school," he said. "Thanks, babe," Ava replied warmly. "Do you want me to pick him up after school?" "Yeah, that'd be great," Alex said. "Can you be there when it closes?" "Of course," she assured him. "Anything else I should know?" "Nope, everything's fine. Just a normal day," he replied. "All right," she said. "See you later." "See you," Alex said with a smile. Before they hung up, Ava added softly, "Love you." "Love you too," Alex replied. Then the call ended. Later that afternoon, during her lunch break at work, Ava felt a familiar hunger tug at her. She decided to treat herself to a meal at a small local restaurant just down the street. She ordered a simple plate of beans and rice, comfort food that reminded her of home. The meal was warm, filling, and oddly calming. As she ate, her body relaxed. The early morning rush, the stress of deadlines, it all faded. But with the comfort came drowsiness. Her eyelids grew heavy. Before she knew it, Ava had fallen asleep right there at the table. It wasn't until one of her colleagues gently shook her awake that she jolted upright, confused and disoriented. A quick glance at her phone made her stomach drop. It was already 17 minutes late to pick up Robert from school. Panic surged through her. She immediately tried calling the school's headmistress, but her phone stubbornly refused to cooperate. The signal was weak. Every call failed to connect. Her fingers trembled as she tried again and again. Nothing. Without wasting another second, Ava grabbed her bag and rushed out of the office. Her heart pounded with urgency as she raced to her car, her thoughts spiraling with fear and guilt. Robert, her baby. He would be standing there, confused, maybe even scared, wondering why she hadn't come. She jumped into the driver's seat and started the engine, determined to reach the school as fast as possible. But as soon as she hit the main road, disaster, traffic. Cars were backed up as far as the eye could see, bumper to bumper, not even a whisper of movement. Ava's hands clenched the steering wheel. Her eyes darted to the clock. Her chest tightened. Every second felt like a punishment. She tried calling Alex, desperate for help. Maybe he could make it in time. But his phone rang and rang. No answer. The minutes crawled. The traffic didn't budge. Ava could barely breathe as visions filled her mind. Robert standing alone outside the school gate, looking around, clutching his backpack, wondering why Mommy hadn't come. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. She couldn't sit there any longer. Fueled by desperation, Ava flung open the car door and jumped out. She scanned the street until she spotted a passing motorbike weaving through the gridlock. She ran into the road, waving her hands frantically. "Please," she cried out, voice shaking. "I need to get to my son's school, fast." The motorcyclist slowed, sensing her urgency. Without hesitation, she climbed onto the back, clutching her bag tightly, her heart racing with one thought: "Please, let me get there in time." Ava pleaded breathlessly with the motorbike rider, her voice raw with urgency. "Please, please help me get to my son's school. I'm already late." The rider didn't ask questions. He gave a firm nod, revved the engine, and gestured for her to hop on. "Please, faster," she urged, her voice shaking. "I need to get to him." The rider pushed harder, slicing through the congested streets. Ava clung on tightly, her eyes darting to her watch again and again, silently begging time to slow down. Meanwhile, back at the school, little Robert sat quietly on a bench near the gate. His small legs dangled off the edge, swinging gently. One by one, his classmates were picked up by smiling parents. Hugs, laughter, the usual end-of-day joy, but not for him. He waited and waited. His tummy grumbled. He felt cold, alone. Still, he kept telling himself, "Mommy will come. She always does." But as the minutes passed, doubt crept in. Maybe they forgot me. The headmistress walked by, locking up the last classroom. She noticed him still sitting there, his backpack resting beside him. "Robert, are you still waiting for your parents?" she asked gently. "Yes, ma'am," he replied, trying to sound braver than he felt. "I'm sure they'll be here soon." She offered him a kind smile. "All right, but stay right here, okay? I'll check on you before I leave." He nodded, but time passed, and hunger gnawed at his stomach like tiny claws. He looked around, then stood up slowly. "I know the way home," he thought. "I can walk. Mommy will meet me halfway." So he picked up his bag and began to walk. As he made his way down the sidewalk, he spotted an ice cream truck across the road. His eyes lit up, momentarily forgetting the loneliness and hunger. He ran toward it, heart pounding with excitement, but in his haste, he tripped. His small body stumbled forward into the road. A car came speeding around the bend. The driver, a man named Clement, saw the boy too late. He slammed the brakes and swerved hard, tires screeching. But it wasn't enough. With a sickening thud, the car struck Robert and he crumpled to the ground. Clement froze, heart in his throat. Then he leapt out of the car and rushed to the child. Robert was lying still, unconscious, a small cut bleeding on his forehead. "Oh, my God! Oh, no!" Clement gasped, his voice cracking with horror. Without a second thought, he scooped Robert into his arms, placed him gently on the back seat, and sped off, straight to the nearest hospital. Back at the school, the headmistress returned to check on Robert, but the bench was empty. Her heart dropped. She looked around the school grounds, called out his name, checked every corner, but there was no sign of him. Grabbing her phone with trembling hands, she quickly dialed Ava's number. Ava had just climbed down from the motorbike, her legs aching from tension as she rushed toward the school gates. Then she heard the headmistress's voice, shaken, urgent. "Mrs. Ava, Robert isn't here. He must have left." The words hit Ava like a punch to the chest. "What?" she gasped, stumbling forward. No, that can't be." She gripped the headmistress's shirt tightly, eyes wide with panic. Her voice cracked as desperation surged through her. "Please, what do you mean he left?" "He wouldn't just leave." The headmistress tried to steady her, though her own voice trembled. I thought he was still waiting here. Maybe your husband picked him up. Call Alex. Maybe Robert is already with him." Ava's hands shook violently as she pulled out her phone. She could barely type, her vision blurred by tears. Her thumb hovered over the call button, then pressed it. Each ring echoed in her ears like a drumbeat of fear. Finally, Alex picked up. "Ava," he said, his voice tense. "What is it?" She didn't even try to hide the panic in her voice. "Alex, please tell me you have Robert. Please tell me he's with you," she cried, the tears falling freely now. There was a heavy pause. Then Alex's voice exploded with disbelief. "What kind of question is that? I thought you were picking him up. That was the plan." Ava sobbed into the phone. I'm sorry, I got delayed, and then... He's gone, Alex. He's not here." "You better find my son," Alex snapped, his voice sharp with fury and fear. "Don't come home until you do." The line went dead. Ava stood frozen. The phone slipped from her hands and hit the ground. She sank to her knees, leaning against the school wall, her body trembling. Tears streamed down her face as a cry escaped her lips, a sound born of fear, guilt, and heartbreak. The headmistress knelt beside her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Come," she whispered. "We're going to find him." Together they began a desperate search. First they combed every corner of the school grounds, calling Robert's name over and over again. No answer. Then they took to the streets. They asked neighbors, waved down passers-by, and checked nearby shops and sidewalks. A small boy, 5 years old, curly hair. "Have you seen him?" But everyone shook their heads. Time passed. Minutes turned to hours. The sun began to sink, casting long shadows over the city. The world was slowly slipping into night, but Ava couldn't stop. Her shoes ached. Her voice was hoarse, but she kept going. She had to. She couldn't stop imagining all the terrible things that could happen to a small boy lost in a big city. Her heart clenched as a darker thought entered her mind. What if I've lost him forever? She clutched her chest and whispered through chattering teeth, "I can't lose him. I can't." Still, she kept walking, one step at a time, clinging to hope like a lifeline in the middle of a storm. Back at the hospital, the atmosphere was tense. A doctor approached Clement, his expression grim. "He needs emergency surgery, immediately. the doctor said, urgency sharp in his voice. "If we delay, we could lose him." Clement's breath caught in his throat. He gave a tight nod. "Tell me where to go. I'll take him." Without wasting a second, Clement gently but swiftly lifted Robert into his arms once more. The boy felt so light, too light. His small body limp, his face frighteningly pale. Worry carved deep lines into Clement's face as he carried Robert back to his car. He placed him carefully in the back seat, fastening the seat belt with shaking hands before climbing behind the wheel again. Then he sped off toward the larger hospital the doctor had recommended. Traffic wasn't kind. Each street seemed more clogged than the last. Red lights lingered. Cars moved at a crawl. Clement's heart pounded with every second that slipped away. He kept glancing into the rearview mirror. Robert was barely moving. His eyes fluttered weakly, lips dry and colorless. "Please hold on, little man," Clement whispered, panic thick in his voice. "We're almost there. Just stay with me." He wanted so badly to reach out and hold Robert's hand, to offer even the smallest comfort. But both of his hands were locked onto the wheel, knuckles white with tension. Every horn, every brake light, every delay felt like a dagger. Please, let him make it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Clement turned into the hospital's emergency bay. He jumped out and ran to the back seat, scooping Robert into his arms. "Help!" he shouted as he burst through the hospital doors. "This child was hit by a car. He needs help right now." Nurses sprang into action. A gurney appeared within seconds. They gently transferred Robert onto it and rushed him down the hallway toward the emergency room. Clement was left standing there, panting, his heart heavy with fear. He could still see Robert's small hand dangling off the side of the stretcher as the doors swung shut behind him. Now all he could do was wait. He sat in the waiting area, eyes fixed on these sterile floor tiles, but his mind was a storm. Every beep, every shout down the hallway made his stomach twist. Time passed, but the fear didn't ease. Eventually, a doctor approached, face tired, eyes serious. "We're doing everything we can," the doctor said gently, trying to offer some comfort. "But he's in critical condition. The next few hours are very important." Clement nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. But the worry in the doctor's eyes said more than the words did. Left alone again, Clement began to pace. His thoughts were a blur, guilt, fear, helplessness all crashing into him like waves. He looked toward the hallway where they'd taken Robert. "Come on, kid," he whispered. "Fight, just fight a little longer." Just then, Clement's phone buzzed. It was Delilah, his wife. She had been anxiously waiting for him to return home from work. Her voice came through the speaker, tight with worry. "Clement, where are you? What's going on?" Clement stepped into the hallway, his voice low but filled with tension. "Delilah, something terrible has happened. I hit a child with the car today. A little boy. I didn't see him. He just ran into the road." There was a pause on the line, then Delilah's voice, barely above a whisper. "Oh my God, is he?" "He's alive," Clement said quickly. "But barely. I brought him to the hospital. They're doing surgery now. I didn't know what else to do." "I'm coming," she said without hesitation. "I'll be there right away." Meanwhile, across the city, Ava couldn't bring herself to go home, not without Robert, not after what Alex had said. Afraid, ashamed, and drowning in guilt, she sought refuge at the home of her longtime friend, Laura, a nurse who worked night shifts at a local hospital. As soon as Laura opened the door and saw Ava's tear-streaked face, she pulled her into a hug. "What happened?" she asked gently. Ava could barely speak through the sobs. "Robert, he's missing. I was late. I couldn't get to the school in time. Now I don't know where he is." Laura's face went pale. "Have you called the police?" "I did," Ava said, wiping her eyes, "but they said we'd have to wait 24 hours to file a missing child report, even though he's just 5. Laura looked shocked. "That's insane." Then, as if fate had been listening, Laura's phone rang. She answered it quickly. It was a nurse friend from her hospital's night shift. "A boy was brought in earlier today," the nurse said. "A hit and run. But we had to transfer him to another hospital immediately. He needed urgent surgery." Laura's eyes widened. "Do you know which hospital?" The nurse gave her the name, and without wasting another second, Laura grabbed her keys. "Ava, come on. We're going to that hospital. It might be Robert." Hope surged in Ava's chest for the first time in hours. She clung to it desperately as they drove through the city, both women praying silently that the boy was her son. When they arrived, Ava rushed to the front desk, nearly breathless. "Please, I'm looking for my son. He's 5 years old. He may have been brought here today from another hospital after an accident." The nurse looked concerned and asked for Robert's name and description. Ava provided it all, her voice cracking. A moment later, a doctor came out to speak with them. His expression was kind, but his words shattered the fragile hope Ava had been holding on to. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "We don't have any patients that match that description." Ava's legs gave way beneath her, and she collapsed into the nearest chair. "No," she whispered. "No, this can't be." Tears poured down her face as she wept openly, her shoulders shaking with grief. Laura stepped forward, desperation in her voice. "She was told a boy was brought here this afternoon, transferred from our hospital. There must be some kind of mix-up." The doctor looked apologetic. "We've checked our records. I understand your fear, truly, but we have no one here by that name or description." Ava buried her face in her hands, the weight of uncertainty crushing her. She had come so far, so full of hope, but now it felt like Robert had slipped even further from her grasp. At the hospital, Ava sat slumped in a cold metal chair, her body trembling with exhaustion and heartbreak. Her friend Laura gently placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, trying to anchor her in the midst of the storm. "I'm so sorry, Ava," she whispered. "We'll keep looking. We're not giving up." But Ava felt lost, utterly and completely lost. Her thoughts spiraled as she stared blankly down the hospital corridor. If Robert wasn't here, then where? Why was this happening? Why couldn't they find him? Just then, the nurse who had initially called Laura approached them again, her face clouded with concern. I'm really sorry," she said softly. "I truly believed the boy brought in was transferred here. Maybe there was a mix-up between hospitals." Ava looked up, her eyes swollen, her cheeks streaked with tears. She nodded weakly, her voice barely audible. "Thank you," she whispered, though the words felt hollow. She turned to Laura and clutched her friend's arm like it was the only solid thing in a world spinning out of control. "Let's go," she said, her voice strained but steady with resolve. "We have to keep searching. We will find him." And with that, the two women left the hospital once again, refusing to let despair win, clinging to a single, desperate hope that Robert was still alive. Back at the other hospital, the one Robert had been transferred to, Clement sat in the waiting room with Delilah by his side. Neither had slept. Their faces were drawn, their eyes fixed on the emergency ward doors. Delilah stared at Robert through the small glass window where he now lay recovering. Machines beeped softly beside his bed. Tears welled in her eyes. "How I wish he was ours," she murmured. "Look at him, even like this. He's so beautiful, so innocent." Clement reached out and gently took her hand. "Don't say that, honey," he said quietly. "The Lord will give us our own child. Just keep believing." But Delilah's gaze didn't waver. "No," she said suddenly. "What if this is our chance? What if God sent him to us for a reason? Clement, we should take him before it's too late, before his real parents find out where he is." Clement froze. He looked at her, stunned. "Delilah, no," he said firm, his voice low. "That boy has a family, people who are probably going out of their minds right now. What you're saying is, it's not right." "But Clement," she whispered, eyes wide with desperation, "what if this is our only chance to have a child? No one would ever know. We saved his life. We've been by his side. We could disappear before anyone connects the dots." Clement pulled his hand away, conflicted. He glanced toward the room again, where Robert lay peacefully, his small chest rising and falling. His heart ached. But he knew the truth. Robert wasn't theirs. And somewhere out there, someone was still searching for him. "I know it's wrong," Delilah whispered, tears shimmering in her eyes. "But we've been married for so many years, Clement, and still no child. Don't you see? This might be the only chance we'll ever get. Maybe God sent him to us." Clement looked away, torn between guilt and longing. He had always dreamed of becoming a father. And now, here was a child they had grown attached to, a boy who needed care, love, protection. The temptation tugged at every fiber of his heart. After a long, heavy silence, Clement finally nodded. "All right," he said softly. "We'll do it. But we have to be careful." That night, under the cloak of darkness, they put their plan into motion. The hospital was quiet, most of the staff off duty, the corridors dimly lit. Clement gently lifted Robert from the bed, cradling the boy with tender care. Though weak, Robert stirred slightly, his breathing steady but soft. Delilah clutched a small bag with their belongings. They crept through side corridors, avoiding any contact with hospital staff, their hearts pounding with every step. At the exit, Clement cast one last glance over his shoulder, then pushed open the door. They slipped into the night, disappearing into the shadows with Robert in their arms. As they drove off into the unknown, a strange mix of fear and hope flooded their hearts. They knew what they were doing was dangerous, but to them it felt like destiny. Meanwhile, back in the city, Alex and Ava sat in a cold, sterile office at the police station. Ava clung to a tissue, her hands shaking, while Alex stared blankly at the officer in front of them. "We're begging you," Alex said, voice cracking. "Please help us find our son." They handed over photographs of Robert, explained every detail from that day, and offered a reward to anyone who could help bring him home. The police didn't waste time. They launched a full-scale investigation, canvassing neighborhoods, questioning witnesses, and announcing Robert's disappearance on television. his picture was shown across news channels. His big eyes, bright smile, and innocent face stirring hearts across the city. "This is Robert," the anchor said solemnly. 5 years old, last seen wearing a blue shirt and white sneakers. If you have any information, please contact the number on the screen. Back at the first hospital, a doctor who had treated Robert happened to be watching the news. His brows furrowed as recognition dawned. "That's the boy we treated earlier, the one who was transferred." Without wasting a second, he grabbed the phone and dialed the police hotline. "Yes," he said urgently. "I know that boy. His name is Robert. He was brought to our hospital after an accident, and we transferred him to another facility for surgery." The search had just taken a crucial turn, and time was ticking. Ava and Alex sped toward the hospital, their hearts pounding with a mix of desperate hope and rising dread. The moment they arrived, they burst through the hospital doors and hurried straight to the front desk. "Please," Alex said breathlessly, "we're looking for our son, Robert. We were told he was admitted here after an accident." The nurse behind the desk immediately called for the doctor. Moments later, a tired-looking man in a white coat approached them. His face was tense. "Yes," the doctor began. "Robert was here, but he was transferred to another hospital for emergency surgery." Ava's face went ghostly pale. She clutched Alex's arm tightly. "Which hospital?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Where is he now?" The doctor hesitated, his expression darkening. Then he spoke quietly. "I'm truly sorry, but there's something you need to know. The child, he's missing. He was taken from the hospital last night." It felt as though the ground crumbled beneath Ava's feet. "No," she whispered, her knees buckling. She rushed forward, grabbing the doctor's coat with trembling hands, her tears falling like rain. "You must give me back my son, please." The doctor gently loosened her grip, his eyes filled with sympathy. "We've already contacted the authorities. The police are fully involved, and an investigation is underway. We will find him. I promise you, we're doing everything we can." Alex wrapped his arms around Ava, holding her tightly as she broke down in sobs. "We have to stay strong," he whispered into her hair. "We will find him, Ava. We will bring our son home." Meanwhile, miles away in a hidden part of town, Clement and Delilah sat frozen in front of their television. The news broadcast confirmed their worst fear. Robert's face was everywhere now. The entire city was searching for him. His photo, his story, a family desperate to find him. Delilah's arms tightened around the sleeping boy. "We have to act fast," Clement said grimly, already on his feet. "The police will be knocking on every door soon. We don't have much time." Delilah looked up, her eyes wide with fear. "What do we do?" "We leave," he said firmly. "Pack only what we need. No photos, no records, nothing that links us to him. We can't leave any trace." Delilah nodded, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She quickly stuffed essentials into a bag, clothes, food, and money, while Clement started the car outside. Their hands trembled as they moved. This wasn't how they imagined their future as a family would begin, on the run, haunted by guilt and fear. But they were desperate, and in desperation, people make dangerous choices. As they neared the intersection, a knot of fear twisted in Clement's stomach. Flashing lights appeared up ahead. Police officers were conducting routine vehicle checks. Delilah saw them too and gasped. "Clement." "I see them," he muttered, his knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. A whistle blew and they were flagged to the side. "Stay calm," Clement whispered, trying to steady his voice. "We'll get through this." A police officer approached the window, flashlight in hand. His expression was firm but neutral. "Good evening, sir. Routine check. License and registration, please." Clement forced a smile as he handed over the documents. "Of course, officer." The officer studied the papers briefly, then tilted his flashlight toward the back seat, where Robert lay under a thick blanket. "Everything all right back there?" he asked, a note of suspicion in his voice. Thinking fast, Clement reached into the glove compartment, pulled out a folded bundle of cash, and discreetly passed it to the officer. "Just a family emergency," he said quietly. "We're in a rush." The officer paused, then looked around. After a tense moment, he pocketed the money and stepped back. "All right, move along." Clement nodded quickly, started the car, and drove off without another word. As they turned the corner and left the checkpoint behind, he exhaled deeply. Delilah reached for his hand. "We made it." "Not yet," Clement replied. "We're heading straight to the airport." With forged documents and new identities, they boarded a flight to a distant state, far from the place where Robert's real family was still searching for him. They vanished into a new life, where no one knew who they really were. Back in their hometown, grief clung to the lives of Ava and Alex like a heavy fog. The police, along with the devastated parents, continued their relentless search. Flyers with Robert's face were plastered on every wall. News stations ran emotional appeals. Hotlines rang daily, but no lead ever led to him. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. Their once joyful home fell into haunting silence. Toys remained untouched. A bedroom stayed frozen in time. Each night, Ava clutched a framed photo of Robert to her chest, soaking her pillow with tears. "I can't lose hope, Alex," she whispered one night, her voice raw and hollow. I just can't." Alex gently pulled her into his arms. His voice trembled as he replied, "We will find him, Ava. We have to believe that." But behind his words, he carried a crushing sorrow that he couldn't shake. The police remained committed, following every possible tip and glimmer of hope, but the trail kept going cold. The town that once lit up with urgency and support slowly went quiet. Posters faded, news crews moved on, yet in the quiet corners of their hearts, Ava and Alex held tightly to one fragile, flickering thing: hope. Clement and Delilah believed that the best way to keep Robert safe and hidden was to keep him out of public view entirely. They decided to hire a private home tutor, hoping to give him a proper education while avoiding any risks of exposure. At first, everything seemed ideal. They gave Robert a comfortable room filled with toys, books, and every comfort they could think of. It was their way of easing the guilt, of trying to make up for stealing him from the family he belonged to. Robert, though still adjusting, slowly began to smile again, He was grateful, even if he didn't fully understand what he'd lost. Then everything changed. A few months later, Delilah discovered she was pregnant. Her joy was overwhelming. She danced around the house, laughing and glowing with excitement. For the first time in years, she felt whole. Clement shared in her happiness, and together they poured all their love into preparing for the arrival of their baby girl, decorating the nursery, buying clothes, planning names. When the baby was born, their joy turned into obsession. The tiny girl became the center of their universe. But for Robert, the warmth began to fade. Delilah, once doting and affectionate, now treated him with cold indifference. She wouldn't let him near the baby, scolding him even for simple gestures of affection. If he tried to hold his baby sister's hand, Delilah would snatch her away protectively. Gradually, she began to neglect him, forgetting to feed him, ignoring his questions, leaving him alone for hours while she fussed over her newborn. The house that once felt safe began to feel like a cage. Clement noticed the shift. One evening, as they sat in the living room and the baby slept in her crib, he turned to Delilah. "Delilah," he said softly, "I don't like how you're treating Robert. He's just a child. He needs love too. If you're overwhelmed, maybe we should consider returning him to his real parents. Maybe it's time." Delilah turned to him sharply, her expression icy. "Are you serious right now, Clement? Do you want to go to jail? Do you want to lose everything we've built? We've come too far to turn back now. Don't ever suggest that again." Clement was stunned by her fury, but deep down, he knew she was right about one thing. They had gone too far. There was no undoing what they had done. Still, he felt powerless. Trapped between guilt and fear, he watched helplessly as Robert's light dimmed day by day. Delilah's resentment only deepened. Her affection was now exclusively reserved for the baby. Robert, once the boy they risked everything for, had become invisible in his own stolen life. Days turned into weeks. The laughter in the house had grown faint. Robert would often sit quietly in his room, staring out the window, waiting for something, someone he couldn't name but still hoped would come for him. And Clement, torn between silence and salvation, feared that one day it might be too late. Robert, once a vibrant, joyful little boy, was now a shadow of himself. His once bright eyes had dulled, and the spark in his laughter had long faded. He rarely spoke unless spoken to, and spent most of his days in silence, withdrawn from the world around him. Clement watched helplessly as the boy he had risked so much for slowly slipped into sadness. Guilt gnawed at him every time he saw Robert alone, or worse, when he saw the fear in his eyes around Delilah. In the following weeks, Clement did what he could to make Robert's life a little more bearable. He would quietly sneak him extra portions of food, read him bedtime stories at night, and find moments during the day to play games or tell jokes to lift his spirits. These small acts were Clement's way of fighting the weight of his own choices. Meanwhile, back in their hometown, Ava and Alex were doing everything they could to survive the grief of their missing child. Each day was a struggle, but they clung tightly to hope. They refused to give up on Robert. One day, Ava discovered she was pregnant. The news brought a fragile light back into their darkened world, and months later, that light grew even brighter. She gave birth to twin girls. The birth brought renewed joy and purpose. As Alex held one of the babies in his arms, he looked at Ava with tenderness. "See, my love," he whispered, "God has blessed us with double. We haven't forgotten Robert, and we never will, but this is a sign that life still has something beautiful for us." Ava nodded, her eyes wet with tears. "Yes, Alex, we will never stop searching for Robert. But for now, let's love these girls with all our hearts." Back in the distant home where Robert was hidden, life only became harder for the boy. Delilah's attitude had grown colder. Her resentment was no longer hidden. Robert, once cherished, was now treated like a servant. He was tasked with all the household chores, cleaning, cooking, fetching items for Delilah, often without proper meals or rest. His hands became calloused, his shoulders slouched with the weight of too much responsibility. The warmth he once felt in this home had vanished. Clement saw the toll it was taking on Robert. The child who had once smiled in his presence now barely looked up when spoken to. The guilt grew unbearable. One evening after dinner, Clement finally decided to speak up. "Delilah," he said gently, "why don't we hire a maid? Robert is just a child. He deserves better." Delilah's expression turned cold. "He's fit for the job," she replied flatly. "We don't need anyone else." Robert, overhearing their argument, paused. His small frame stiffened, and in that moment, he made a quiet decision. He couldn't keep living like this. With trembling hands and a brave heart, he began to gather his courage. Something had to change. Robert stepped into the conversation, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can I continue my education?" he asked, his hands nervously wringing together. Delilah didn't even look at him. "No, you have enough work to do here," she snapped, her tone sharp and final. Clement's shoulders slumped with defeat. Arguing with Delilah was like shouting into the wind, but watching Robert being crushed under the weight of chores and coldness chipped away at his heart more each day. Meanwhile, in another part of the country, Ava and Alex had never stopped searching. Though they poured their love into raising their twin daughters, their hearts still carried the emptiness left by Robert's disappearance. Not a day passed without a prayer, a memory, or a whispered hope. "We'll find you someday." 18 long years passed. Robert had grown into a striking young man. Despite the harsh treatment, he carried himself with quiet dignity. His eyes, though tired, held a fire forged through pain. His body bore the strength of someone who had endured more than his share of hardship, but had never broken. Clement had watched him grow with conflicted admiration. What began as guilt evolved into something deeper, paternal love. He couldn't deny it anymore. Robert had become his son in every way that mattered, but that love only sharpened the guilt he felt for the lie they'd forced him to live. One evening, Clement found Robert at the sink, sleeves rolled up, scrubbing dishes. The boy, now a man, looked worn out. Clement approached him quietly. "You don't have to do all this, Robert," he said softly. "You deserve a break." Robert turned, surprised by the rare kindness in his tone. "Thank you, Father," he replied, barely above a whisper. "But if I don't do it, Mother will be angry." Clement let out a deep sigh. "I know," he said, "but you shouldn't have to live like this. You're part of this family too." Time passed, and so did Clement's ability to keep pretending. The more he saw Robert endure, the harder it became to justify the past. His affection for Robert deepened, and his shame grew heavier with each passing day. Then one morning, Delilah took their daughter, her biological child, out for errands. The house was quiet. Robert, seizing the rare opportunity, found Clement sitting alone in the living room, flipping through a newspaper. "Father," Robert said, voice shaky but resolute, "can I ask you something?" Clement looked up, instantly sensing the weight of what was coming. "What is it, Robert?" Robert stepped forward, tears beginning to gather in his eyes. "Are you and Mommy my real parents?" The question hit Clement like a storm. He froze, heart pounding in his chest. Yes," he stammered. "Why would you ask that?" Robert's voice cracked. "Because of the way she treats me. I don't understand anymore. It feels like I don't belong here, like I never did." Clement stared at him, his throat tightening, his heart shattering. He was out of excuses, out of lies. And for the first time in 18 years, he realized maybe it was time to tell the truth. "Don't stress yourself, Robert," Clement said, his voice soft but firm. "I love you, son." Robert looked down, uncertainty clouding his eyes. "It's hard, Daddy. I just want to feel like I belong." Clement placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You do belong, and you deserve so much better than this." He paused, then added with a small smile, "That's why I've already gotten you a job as a receptionist at the new hotel down the street." Robert's eyes widened, disbelief giving way to joy. "Really?" he gasped. "Thank you so much, Daddy. I love you." Clement nodded, his smile growing. "You deserve it. You're smart, responsible, and it's time you saw what life has to offer outside these walls. This job will give you some independence." Robert beamed. "This means everything to me." Later that afternoon, when Delilah returned home with their daughter, Robert could barely contain his excitement. "Mommy," he called out, rushing to meet her. "Daddy got me a job." Delilah paused, her expression immediately turning suspicious. "What job?" she asked sharply. "A receptionist position at the new hotel just down the street," Robert replied, eyes shining. Her expression darkened instantly. "What?" Without another word, Delilah stormed into the living room, where Clement was seated reading a newspaper. "How dare you get Robert a job without talking to me first?" she snapped. "Who's going to do all the chores now?" Clement calmly lowered the newspaper. "I've told you before, we can hire help." "I've said it before and I'll say it again. Robert is the help," Delilah hissed. "He's not going anywhere. Not while I'm in this house." Clement's patience finally cracked. "What is it really, Delilah?" he asked, voice rising. "Is it because I work in your father's company that you think I'm not man enough to make decisions in my own house?" Delilah folded her arms, her chin lifting defiantly. "I'm the man of this house," Clement said firmly. "And I'm telling you, Robert starts work tomorrow. That's final. You have no right to make that decision on your own," she shouted. "I do have the right," Clement shot back. Robert is not a slave. He's a young man with dreams, and I won't let you continue crushing them just because you're afraid of the truth catching up to us." Delilah's face burned with fury. "This is my house too." "Then start acting like it," Clement retorted. "Because if you can't see how wrong this is, maybe you need to reconsider how you treat him, and everyone else under this roof." Delilah's lips tightened. Without another word, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Robert, who had been quietly listening from the hallway, stood frozen, his emotions tangled in a storm of fear, hope, and confusion. For the first time in his life, someone had stood up for him, and that someone was calling himself father. He wiped a tear from his cheek, unsure if it came from pain or something close to joy. And for the first time in a long while, Robert felt hope. He had never seen his father stand up to Delilah like that. It stirred something deep inside him, a glimmer of belief that maybe, just maybe, his life could finally change. The next morning, Robert woke up early, nerves fluttering in his stomach. He dressed neatly for his first day at the hotel, his heart pounding with a strange mix of excitement and fear. Clement stood waiting for him in the kitchen, a gentle smile on his face as he handed Robert a packed lunch. "Good luck, Robert. You're going to do great," he said warmly. Robert hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Daddy, for everything." From the hallway, Delilah stood watching, her arms crossed, her face tight with silent fury. She said nothing, but her eyes burned with cold rage as she watched Robert step out the door and walk into a new chapter of his life. That afternoon at the hotel, Robert stood behind the reception desk, straightening his tie and checking the reservation system, when a striking woman approached, flanked by two teenage girls. "Good afternoon, madam. How may I help you today?" Robert asked politely, flashing a warm smile. The woman smiled back. "Good afternoon. I'm here for a friend's wedding, and I'd like to book a room for a week." "Of course," Robert replied, quickly typing on the computer. "We have a lovely room available. May I have your name, please?" "Ava Alex," she said softly, her eyes fixed on Robert's face. There was something in his features that made her heart stutter, something achingly familiar. As Robert confirmed the booking, Ava couldn't tear her gaze away. His eyes, his smile, the shape of his jaw. Memories long buried surged to the surface, hitting her like a wave. Her heart clenched. She turned to her daughters and whispered, "Your brother. The one we lost. He looked so much like him." The girls looked at Robert, then back at their mother, wide-eyed and silent. During her stay, Ava found herself watching Robert whenever she could. Every small gesture, every polite word, it all deepened the ache in her heart. There was a warmth in him, a quiet strength, and something she couldn't explain, something familiar. She began striking up small conversations at the front desk, just casual words at first. But each interaction felt heavier, like she was inching closer to the truth. One afternoon, she approached the desk holding a small envelope. "This is for you, Robert," she said gently, handing it to him. He blinked, surprised. "Mrs. Ava, thank you, but this is too much." She shook her head. "It's just a little something to show appreciation for your kindness. You've made this stay truly special." Robert smiled shyly. "But you don't have to do this," Robert said, holding the envelope gently. "I insist," Ava replied with a soft smile. "You remind me of someone very dear to me." Robert's curiosity stirred. "May I ask who?" Ava's eyes shimmered as memories surfaced. "My son," she said, her voice trembling. "He went missing many years ago. You look so much like him." A pang of sympathy struck Robert's heart. "I'm so sorry to hear that, ma'am. But maybe it's just a coincidence. People do look alike sometimes." Ava nodded slowly, a single tear tracing down her cheek. "Maybe, but still, amen to your words. I hope we find him someday. Amen." Robert echoed, his voice soft. In the days that followed, Ava spent more and more time around Robert. She brought him small gifts, cookies, books, even a knitted scarf, and spoke to him with a warmth he had rarely known. Her twin daughters took to Robert as well, chatting with him, sharing jokes, and asking questions about his life. The bond grew naturally, like vines drawn to the sun. One evening, as Ava sat in the hotel lounge with her girls, she watched Robert from across the room. There was something in the way he moved, graceful yet careful. In his eyes, she often caught fleeting shadows of sorrow. It was in those moments she was certain this wasn't just resemblance. This was connection. Robert, too, felt it. Every time Ava smiled at him, every kind word, every shared laugh, it stirred something in him. A longing, a strange, deep comfort. Watching Ava with her daughters made his heart ache. He didn't know why, but he wished deeply that he had a family like that, a mother like her. As Ava's stay drew to an end, she knew she couldn't leave without doing something more. On her final morning, she walked up to the reception desk, her eyes tender. "Robert," she said softly, "before we go, I want to give you something." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, worn locket. Carefully, she placed it in his hand. "This belonged to my son. I've kept it all these years. I want you to have it." Robert stared at the locket, stunned. His fingers closed around it as his eyes filled with tears. "Mrs. Ava, I don't know what to say." "Just promise me you'll keep it close," Ava said, her voice tight with emotion. "And remember, you'll always have a place in our family." As Ava and her daughters walked out of the hotel for the last time, Robert stood behind the desk, watching them disappear through the glass doors. He clutched the locket tightly to his chest, something warm swelling in his heart, a feeling he hadn't known in years. That evening, when Robert got home, he couldn't stop smiling. He sat on the couch, turning the locket over in his hands, his thoughts far away. Clement, noticing the unusual joy on Robert's face, raised an eyebrow. "What's got you smiling like that, son?" Robert looked up, eyes bright. "A guest at the hotel, Mrs. Ava. She gave me this locket. She said it belonged to her son who went missing years ago. She said I reminded her of him." Clement grew still, something unreadable passing through his eyes. "That's very kind of her," he said, forcing a smile. "She must have really seen something in you." Robert nodded, holding the locket close. "I don't know why, but it felt like home." Later that night, Clement sat alone in his bedroom, deep in thought. The image of the locket in Robert's hand kept flashing through his mind. Could Ava really be his biological mother? His heart pounded. Oh my goodness, it's getting too close. He buried his face in his hands. I should never have let him take that hotel job. Delilah warned me. She was right, but I can't tell her now. She'll be furious. Days passed, but the thought refused to leave Clement's mind. The resemblance, the locket, Ava's emotional reaction. What if Robert is the son she lost? What if we've been raising someone else's child all these years? One Friday evening, Robert was watching a movie alone in the living room. It was a rare moment of peace. Then Delilah's daughter stormed in. Without a word, she snatched the remote and changed the channel. "Hey, I was watching that," Robert said quietly, reaching for the remote. She shot him a sharp glare. "Go to your father's house. You're not even welcome here." Her words hit him like a slap. Robert froze, the sting of rejection cutting deep. He stood there for a moment, stunned, before retreating to his room, silent tears sliding down his cheeks. When Clement returned from work, he noticed the quiet. Something felt wrong. He walked to Robert's room and found him curled on the bed, wiping at his tears. "Robert," Clement said softly, sitting beside him. "What happened?" Through sniffles, Robert told him everything. The remote, the cruel words, the pain that still echoed in his chest. Clement's face darkened with anger and sadness. "I'm so sorry you had to hear that," he said gently. "But listen to me, son. You are always welcome here. This is your home, no matter what anyone says." Robert wiped his eyes, then hesitated before asking the question that had been buried in his heart for years. His voice trembled. "Father, why didn't you ever tell me I was adopted?" Clement froze. He looked into Robert's searching eyes and felt the weight of years of secrets pressing down on him. I wanted to protect you," he said quietly. "I thought it was best not to complicate your life." Robert frowned. "Then, who are my real parents?" Clement took a long breath, gathering the courage to speak. "Robert, your parents died in a plane crash. You were just a baby. We took you in after that." Robert gasped. They're gone." Fresh tears spilled from his eyes. His heart broke anew. Clement nodded, his voice choked. "Yes, son, I'm so sorry." Overwhelmed with sadness and confusion, Robert leaned into Clement's arms, seeking the only comfort he knew. Clement held him tightly, guilt and regret weighing heavily on his shoulders. "I should have told you sooner," Clement whispered. "I just wanted to wait until you were old enough to understand. I didn't want to put you through that pain." As they held each other in silence, Robert's world tilted. But in that moment, even in the chaos, he found something steady. Clement's arms. The truth may have shaken everything, but the love, however complicated, was still real. Clement took a deep breath and made a choice. He could no longer hide what was weighing on his heart. "Robert," he began softly, his voice trembling. "I love you." Robert froze. He looked up slowly, confusion clouding his eyes. What did you just say?" he asked, his voice low, uncertain. I said I love you, Clement repeated, trying to steady himself. Not just as a guardian, but truly, deeply. Robert pulled away slightly, blinking as if trying to make sense of it. Are you okay, Father? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What are you saying right now? Clement reached out gently, placing his hands on Robert's shoulders. Stop calling me Father, he said quietly. I just told you, you're not my biological son. You deserve the truth, and I need to be honest about my feelings. Robert's chest tightened. He stepped back, shaken and disoriented. But you raised me. You've always been like a father to me, he said, almost pleading for this moment to make sense. I know, Clement said, eyes full of sorrow, and I've loved you all these years. But somewhere along the way, that love grew into something more than I could explain or control. You became everything to me. Robert stared at him in disbelief, his mind spinning. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out of the room, his heart thudding painfully in his chest, leaving Clement alone, guilt and regret heavy on his shoulders. In the days that followed, Delilah began noticing something unusual. The way Clement looked at Robert, it wasn't just the gaze of a father figure. It was deeper, more intense, troubling. One evening, she decided to confront him. We need to talk, Delilah said firmly, stepping into the study. Clement looked up, already bracing himself. What is it? I've been watching you, she said bluntly. The way you look at Robert, it's different. There's something going on, isn't there? Clement's eyes widened. No, Delilah, there's nothing inappropriate happening. Don't lie to me, Clement, she snapped, arms crossed tightly. I see the way you look at him, and I know when you're hiding something. Clement exhaled heavily, rubbing his forehead. It's complicated. Then explain it, she demanded. I told Robert the truth, that he's adopted. It's been emotional. He needed to know. Delilah's eyes narrowed, suspicion and anger rising. Why now after all these years? Because he deserved the truth, Clement answered, his voice strained. He's not a child anymore. He has the right to know who he is. Delilah stared at him for a long moment, then shook her head slowly. I don't trust you, Clement. I can feel something is off. I'm watching you, both of you. Clement looked away, weary and broken. There's nothing more to it. But Delilah's glare remained sharp, her voice ice-cold. Be careful. If I find out there's anything else, anything at all, I won't stay silent. As she walked away, Clement felt the walls closing in. The truth was unraveling faster than he could control, and Robert's silence weighed heavier than any accusation. There will be consequences, Delilah said coldly. Clement met her gaze, feeling the full weight of her threat. There's nothing to find, Delilah, he replied, keeping his tone steady. I love him, but only as a father loves his son. That's all. Delilah turned sharply on her heel, her voice laced with ice as she left the kitchen. We'll see about that, Clement. We'll see. As her footsteps faded, a deep sense of dread settled over Clement. He knew her well. Delilah didn't make idle threats. He would have to tread carefully. The truth was already straining the fragile balance in their home, and now, with Delilah's suspicions brewing, everything could unravel. Meanwhile, miles away, Ava sat in her bedroom, lost in thought. The memory of the young hotel receptionist, Robert, lingered in her mind like an echo she couldn't silence. There was something about him that haunted her, that called to her in ways she couldn't explain. Every day since she'd left that hotel, she thought of him. Alex walked into the room and paused when he saw her distant expression. Gently he sat beside her. "Ava, what's wrong?" he asked softly. Ava turned to him, her eyes full of emotion. "Do you remember the receptionist I told you about?" Alex nodded. "Yes, the young man from the hotel. I can't stop thinking about him," Ava admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's something about him, Alex. The way he looked, the way he spoke. It felt so familiar, like a piece of me I'd lost. I can't explain it, but I feel like I need to see him again." Alex studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, if it means that much to you, we'll go together. Let's find out." Ava's eyes lit up with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." Without wasting any time, she booked their flights. Her heart thudded with anticipation and unspoken hope. Could it be? Could the boy she had once lost truly be within reach? Days later, Ava and Alex arrived at the hotel. They checked in quickly and headed straight to the front desk. Ava stepped forward, her voice eager. "Please, we're looking for Robert. He used to work here." The receptionist gave her a polite but puzzled look. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Robert doesn't work here anymore. He left a few weeks ago." Ava's face fell. "Do you know where he went?" "He mentioned getting admission into a university," the receptionist replied. "But I'm afraid he didn't say which one." Ava stepped back, disappointment washing over her like a cold wave. She had come so close, and now the trail had gone cold again. Alex gently touched her arm. "Don't give up," he said quietly. "We'll find him." Ava nodded, clutching her purse tightly. "We have to," she whispered. "I know in my heart he's our son." But he didn't say which one. "We don't have his new phone number or address," the receptionist added with an apologetic shrug. Ava and Alex exchanged disappointed glances. "Is there anyone here who might know how to contact him?" Alex asked, his voice laced with hope. The receptionist sighed. "I'm afraid not. He didn't leave any forwarding information. He just said he was going to start school soon." A heavy silence followed. Ava and Alex turned away from the desk and walked slowly down the street. The city buzzed around them, but to Ava, everything felt distant, muted. "I can't believe he's gone," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "I was so sure we'd find him here." "I know, honey," Alex said, gently wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "I'm sorry it didn't turn out the way we hoped." Ava leaned into him, trying to shake off the ache of disappointment. "Thank you for coming with me. It means the world to me that you believed in this too." Alex kissed the top of her head. "We'll figure it out, Ava. Maybe we can trace the university. There's got to be a way." Ava looked up, a flicker of hope breaking through her sadness. "You're right. We can't give up now, not when we've come this far." Later, as they prepared to check out of the hotel, a quiet tension lingered between them, a mix of hope and heartbreak. Before they left, Ava walked back to the front desk one last time. She handed the receptionist a small note. "Please," she said gently, "if Robert comes back, or if he ever calls or reaches out, could you give him this number?" The receptionist took it with a nod. "Of course. I'll make sure he gets it if he comes back. Tell him it's Ava. From a few months ago," she added softly. As they walked to their car, Ava looked back at the hotel one last time. Her heart sank a little. Still no answers. Still no closure. On the road home, Ava sat quietly, her eyes tracing the buildings outside the window. "Do you think we'll ever find him?" she asked quietly, more to herself than to Alex. "I believe we will," Alex replied. "We just need to keep looking." Ava sighed, torn between frustration and faith. "I just wish we had more to go on. Right now it feels like trying to find a needle in a haystack." "We'll figure it out," Alex said, squeezing her hand. "We can check local universities, maybe look on social media. Someone out there knows something. We just have to be patient." Ava gave a small nod. "You're right. We can't give up." Back at home, Ava got to work. Every evening she pored through lists of nearby universities, sending out polite emails to student offices, checking photos and forums, searching for even a hint of Robert. Days turned into weeks, and while she didn't find anything immediately, she refused to stop. She couldn't. Then, one quiet evening, her phone rang. Her heart jumped. She snatched it up quickly. "Hello? Is this Ava?" A familiar voice asked cautiously. Ava sat up straight, her breath catching. Yes, this is Ava." Her voice trembled. Hope surged in her chest. A soft, trembling voice came through the line. "This is the receptionist from the hotel you stayed at. Robert came by earlier today. I gave him your number. He seemed very interested in contacting you." Ava's breath caught in her throat. A rush of excitement surged through her. Thank you so much," she exclaimed. "Did he say when he might call?" "He didn't give an exact time," the receptionist replied, "but he said he would reach out soon." After ending the call, Ava turned to Alex, her eyes gleaming with emotion. "He knows," she whispered. "Robert knows we're looking for him. He might call soon." Alex smiled and wrapped his arms around her. "That's amazing news, Ava. Let's stay hopeful." 2 days later, the phone rang again. Ava grabbed it instantly. "Hello? Hi. Ava. It's Robert." Her heart leapt. "Robert. Oh my goodness. It's so good to hear your voice again." They spoke for a while, catching up and sharing laughter. Then Ava, unable to contain her curiosity, asked gently, "Robert, which university did you end up attending?" There was a pause. Then Robert replied, "I got into Brightdale University." Ava froze. "Wait, Brightdale? That's right here in our city. I know, right? Robert said with a chuckle. Small world. It feels like fate or something. Ava could hardly contain her excitement. That's incredible, Robert. You're so close. We have to celebrate this. You must come over this weekend. Alex and I would love to have you. It'll be like a little family reunion. There was hesitation on the other end, but after a brief pause, Robert said, "Do you love that, Ava? It'll be great to see you both in person." That evening, Robert called Clement. "Father, you remember that woman I told you about? Ava, she invited me to her home this weekend." Clement's face darkened. "What?" "No, Robert, you don't know her. What if they're kidnappers, or worse, ritualists?" Robert's excitement quickly faded. "You think so?" "I'm serious, my son," Clement said, his voice stern. "Please don't go. It could be dangerous." "Okay," Robert said quietly. "I won't go." The weekend arrived. Ava had spent the entire morning preparing, cooking, decorating, setting the table. Her heart fluttered every time she heard a car pass by. But as the hours dragged on with no sign of Robert, her hope began to waver. Finally, she picked up her phone and dialed. Robert answered, his voice apologetic. "Ava, I'm really sorry I can't make it. I'm preparing for my exams." Ava's heart sank, but she tried to keep her voice steady. "I understand, Robert. Your studies are important. Maybe we can plan for another time." "Yeah," Robert replied, guilt creeping into his tone. "Another time. Thanks for understanding." After hanging up, Ava sat down on the couch, her smile fading. Alex entered the room and immediately noticed the look on her face. "Ava, what's wrong?" She sighed, her eyes misty. "Robert couldn't come. He said he's busy with exams." Alex sat beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "He'll come around. He just needs time." Ava leaned against him, whispering, "Just hope we haven't lost him again." Ava said softly, her voice filled with disappointment. "We'll see him soon, Ava. Don't worry. He probably is swamped with studying." Ava nodded, trying to pull herself out of her sadness. "You're right, Alex. We'll just have to be patient. A little longer." Meanwhile, Robert sat alone in his room, staring at the ceiling. His heart was heavy. He truly wanted to visit Ava and Alex. There was a strange comfort he felt in their presence, something he couldn't quite explain. But Clement's warning echoed in his mind like a siren. What if they're ritualists? What if they want to harm you? He trusted Clement. He always had. But something didn't sit right. It felt like he was missing out on something important. A week later, Robert finally finished his exams. Relieved, he returned home, ready to relax. But the moment he stepped inside, Clement was waiting for him with unexpected news. "Robert," he said, his tone oddly cheerful, "our visas have come through. We're relocating abroad." Robert blinked in disbelief. "Wait, what? You never mentioned this before. What about my studies? I just started university a few months ago, and now you want me to leave everything behind." Clement's expression turned serious. "The country is getting worse, Robert. Too dangerous, too unstable. We need to get out. You'll finish your studies over there. somewhere safer. Robert's mind was spinning. "I need to think about this," he muttered, brushing past him and heading straight to his room. As he sat on the edge of his bed, 1,000 thoughts swirled in his head. He remembered the cruel words Delilah's daughter had spat at him like poison. "Go to your father's house. You're not welcome here." That pain hadn't faded. It lingered, a wound left open. And then came the more disturbing memory. Clement's voice, soft and trembling. "Stop calling me your father, Robert. I love you, not as a son." Robert shivered, a chill running down his spine. Why had Clement said that? Why now? Then Ava's words came flooding back. "You remind me of someone very dear to me, my son." The way she had looked at him, that warmth, that longing, it hadn't felt casual. It had felt real. Robert began to connect the pieces like fragments of a broken mirror. Ava's deep emotional reaction, Clement's strange confessions, the secrecy around his adoption, the locket, the invitation, the familiarity. Could Ava be my real mother? He thought, heart pounding. The idea seemed crazy, and yet the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. Why had no one told him the truth? What was being hidden? And why did Clement suddenly want to take him out of the country? As his thoughts grew darker, Robert stood up slowly, a fire of determination burning in his eyes. He had to find out the truth, no matter what it cost. All the signs pointed to one inescapable truth, a truth Robert was terrified to admit but could no longer ignore. Could Ava truly be my biological mother? His heart pounded as he replayed every detail in his mind, the familiar gaze, the way her voice trembled when she saw him, the questions she asked, Clement's sudden possessiveness, and the chilling way he had said, "Please, be mine." The next morning, Robert tried to step outside, desperate to clear his head. But as he approached the gate, the security guard blocked his path. "I need to go out," Robert said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'm sorry," the guard replied, shifting nervously. "Your father left strict instructions not to let you leave without his permission." Robert clenched his fists. "This is insane," he muttered as he stormed back into the house. His pulse quickened. He needed answers, and he needed them now. He reached for his phone to call Clement. Gone. Panic surged through him. "Where is my phone?" he whispered, frantically searching every corner of his room. But deep down he already knew the answer. Clement took it. "He doesn't want me contacting anyone." Robert's breathing grew shallow. This isn't just strict parenting. This is control. This is fear. This is dangerous. Feeling trapped and alone, he paced the room. Clement had gone out with Delilah and their daughter. The house was quiet, too quiet. When Delilah returned alone that evening, Robert didn't hesitate. He met her at the door. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded. "Why can't I leave the house?" Delilah's face was cold, unreadable. "It's for your own safety, Robert," she said flatly. "We've discovered that Ava, she's a kidnapper. She and her husband were planning to abduct you." Robert's jaw dropped. What? That's not possible. I don't even know them. You wouldn't understand, Delilah snapped. You're too trusting. That's why we decided to relocate. It's the only way to protect you. But why me? Robert pressed. Why would she be after me? Delilah's eyes darkened. Her voice rose. I said enough. Just shut up and obey us, Robert. I'm done with this conversation. She turned and walked away, leaving Robert stunned, alone, and more confused than ever. 2 days before their planned departure, Clement and Delilah left with their daughter for yet another errand. Robert watched from the window, waiting, calculating. The moment they were gone, he rushed to the gate again. Please, he begged the guard, just let me out for a few minutes. I promise I'll be back before they are. I swear. The guard hesitated, glancing over his shoulder. You'll get me into trouble. I swear on everything, Robert pleaded. I just need air. I won't go far. After a tense pause, the guard finally stepped aside. You have 1 hour. Robert ran. He didn't stop until he found a woman walking past with her phone in hand. Gasping for breath, he approached her. Please, I'm sorry to bother you. I really need to make a call. It's urgent. The woman, startled by his desperation, handed over her phone. With trembling hands, Robert dialed Ava's number. She answered on the first ring. Hello? Ava, he said, barely able to keep his voice steady. It's me, Robert. I need help. They're trying to take me abroad. They've locked me in. They said you wanted to kidnap me. Ava's voice tightened. Oh my God. Robert, listen to me carefully. I need you to go to the nearest police station right now. Tell them everything. I don't know where it is. Ask anyone. Just go. I'm on my way. Don't go home. Don't trust anyone but the police. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just trying to escape a house. He was running toward the truth. Ava's voice on the phone had been filled with urgency and warmth, and as Robert ended the call, the passerby gave him an encouraging nod. Thank you, Robert whispered, then made his way to the nearest police station as instructed. Once there, he explained everything. How he had been locked in, his phone taken, and how he suspected there were secrets being kept from him. The officers listened carefully, their expressions serious, and assured him he was safe now. You can wait here until your family arrives, one officer said kindly. You did the right thing, son. Robert nodded, though his heart still raced. Even surrounded by law enforcement, a sense of unease lingered. Would they come looking for me? What would they do if they found me gone? Meanwhile, Clement returned home earlier than expected. The moment he stepped inside and noticed Robert's absence, a chill ran through him. Where is he? He demanded, turning to the security guard. The guard hesitated, then lied. He's inside, sir. Maybe in his room. But Clement wasn't fooled. He stormed through the house calling Robert's name, only to be met with silence. Rage and fear boiled inside him. He grabbed his phone and dialed Delilah. He's gone, Clement barked. We have to find him, now. Call everyone. Friends, relatives, anyone who might have seen him. At the police station, Robert sat in the waiting area, eyes glued to the door. Then finally it opened, and Ava and Alex rushed in. "Robert!" Ava cried, tears spilling down her cheeks as she wrapped her arms around him. He stood frozen for a second, then melted into her embrace. It felt like coming home. "We've got you now," Alex said firmly. "No one is taking you away again." Robert nodded, overwhelmed, the pieces of his life slowly beginning to fall into place. Back at the house, panic overtook Clement and Delilah. They had searched every possible place and called everyone they could think of. No one had seen Robert. "What if she found out the truth?" Clement muttered, pacing in terror. "What if he went to her?" Delilah's face was pale. "We need to leave. Now get the bags." But just as they began to flee, flashing lights filled the street. Police sirens wailed. Officers stormed the house. "You're under arrest," one officer declared, "for abduction and obstruction of justice." Clement and Delilah were handcuffed, their plans to escape collapsing around them. At the station, tension filled the air as Clement and Delilah were brought in. Ava stood tall, holding Robert protectively, Alex by her side. The officers demanded answers, and the weight of the truth finally broke Clement's silence. He looked down, defeated. "It was an accident. Years ago, I hit him with my car. He was just a little boy," Clement confessed, his voice hollow. "We took him to the hospital, but he had no identification. Delilah, she convinced me we couldn't have children. We told ourselves we were giving him a better life." "You stole my child," Ava said, her voice trembling with fury and pain. "You looked me in the eye and lied. You'll both rot in jail for this." Delilah sobbed, clinging to Clement as the officers read them their rights. Robert stood in stunned silence, the truth echoing in his mind. The man he had called father was the reason his life had been stolen, the reason he had grown up not knowing his real family. And yet a strange sense of closure began to take shape. He turned to Ava and Alex, his true family. "I don't know how to feel," he whispered. "You don't have to figure it out alone," Ava said, squeezing his hand. "We'll take it one day at a time, together." As Clement and Delilah were led away in handcuffs, their secrets exposed and their lies unraveling, Robert stood between Ava and Alex. No longer just a confused young man, but a son reclaimed, a truth finally revealed. Ava placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You're home now, Robert, where you've always belonged." He looked at her, eyes glistening, and for the first time in a long while, he smiled, genuine, peaceful, and full of hope. Together, they stepped out of the police station into a new beginning. A family whole again. Now, with the past behind them and the future ahead, they were ready to begin again. This time, as a real family. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our latest updates. Thanks for watching, and stay blessed.